Georgia election results, updates on the DC protests and COVID, and then we review the call between Trump and the Georgia Secretary of State. These stories and more in your January 6th Not So News update. Starting us before the Georgia election started, we see that in closing argument, Biden points to McConnell's block of $2,000 checks as reason to vote Democrat. This seems just very hypocritical of Joe Biden. We know that both of the Republican candidates did support the $2,000 stimulus checks. At this point, it's around 6:30 a.m. when I'm recording this on January 6th. Both of the runoffs look like they're leaning Democrat. Only one of them has so far been called by the AP. We'll keep up to date on those. Looking at riots going on throughout the country, first, before the DC riots started, we see this coming in from the Rolling Stone. Pro-Trumpers intent on bringing firearms to MAGA March. DC activates National Guard. Main summary of this is DC Mayor Muriel Bowser did call in the National Guard for protection. We have seen throughout the city that roads have been closed down, and there's been reports that you need to show papers to get into the portions of the city, and those papers would include things like hotel receipts, etc. In the same context, we see that Proud Boys leader released after arrest for burning BLM flag. This is referring to Enrique Tarrio. He made a post on social media saying that he burned a Black Lives Matter flag last month, and he wanted to see a hate crime charged against a non-white individual, which appears to be happening. Also not completely related to DC, but also relevant, CNN News is reporting that officer who shot Jacob Blake will not face charges. And in the article, they're stating, it's my decision now that no Kenosha law enforcement officer will be charged with any criminal offense based on the facts and laws. Gravely, who's the district attorney, said on Tuesday. This was the incident where a cop was called to a residence after reports of Jacob Blake, in this case, was committing sexual assault on a woman and kidnapping her children. When he tried to drive off with the kids and he threatened to grab a knife, the officers shot him. We'll see if there's any riots that begin as a result of this, which are right now expected. Next, we have two stories related to COVID. One is an update on the incidents we saw earlier in the week where a pharmacist let vaccines out. Here we have TMJ4, which is the Milwaukee NBC station, stating pharmacists accused of spoiling COVID-19 vaccine believed it would change people's DNAs. Officials say in the article, Brandenburg told investigators that he believed the vaccine was not safe for people and would harm them and change their DNA. The probable cause statement said Brandenburg, according to the Grafton Police Department, is an admitted conspiracy theorist. Medical professionals have repeatedly stated that mRNA COVID vaccines do not alter a person's DNA. Main issue I have with this defense is that if he genuinely believed these were harmful, he would have done more than just the 60 vials. He would have done, all of them. Next, we have BBC News. Colchester Hospital, COVID deniers removed at Capacity Hospital. This is a hospital in the UK. In the article, Mr. Holmes said hospital security had to remove people who were taking photographs of empty corridors and then posting them on social media saying the hospital is not in crisis. When you've got that sort of social media pressure and those people denying the reality of COVID, it really concerns us. Words fail me, he said. We see a drastic step here on the definition of what it means to be a COVID denier. Initially, COVID denial meant believing the virus itself wasn't real. Now it seems to say that the situation regarding the virus isn't real, which is turns from a fact to an opinion piece. And at this point, you really see what's going on with language and the abuse of language going on here. Finishing us off, CNN has released the full audio of the transcript and audio between Trump and the Georgia Secretary of State. Before getting into some of the stories regarding it, I want to give my summary on it, and the link to the transcript will be in the description if you want to, verify any of my thoughts. There's mainly about 4 to 5 parts of the call. The call starts off by Trump claiming about a generalized 250 to 300,000 ballots that are fraudulent. We can't really go into those. There's no claims. On top of that, there's about 25,000 fraudulent votes based on things like voter address, dead voters, PO box addresses, things to that nature. what we're seeing is that Trump's lawyers state that they were basing those 25,000 votes based on public Secretary of State data. The Georgia Secretary of State lawyers responded that they were using different data sets that were not allowed to be released to the public to confirm their numbers. The Trump claim responds by asking if they can have access to those. And long story short, the Georgia team says no. So main issue we have is then when Trump makes this claim of wanting to find more votes, my presumption is that he's referring to out of the 25,000, he wants to make votes change off of that, which puts into context some of the upcoming stories we're going to be checking out. My opinion is any calls for impeachment are either ignorant of the call, did not listen to the call, or doing a jump of logic that just seems based to not be on fact. Looking at NBC, Democrats asked FBI Director Ring to open criminal probe into Trump after a leaked phone call. We have a quote stating, "As members of Congress and former prosecutors, we believe Donald Trump engaged in solicitation or conspiracy to commit a number of election crimes." Representative Ted Lieu of California and Kathleen Rice of New York wrote in a letter to Wray on Monday, "We ask you to open an immediate criminal investigation to the president." Once again, with regards to the call, there was not a solicitation of votes. It was a looking at explicit votes that they already had numbers counted for. From ABC News, NAACP calls on Georgia DA to investigate Trump call. The NAACP is calling on Fulton County District Attorney to investigate President Donald Trump's weekend call to Brad Raffinger when he asked the top election official in Georgia to find 11,780 votes for him to overturn the state election's results. Once again, this was an hour call. To take 3 words completely out of context is a jump in significant logic. MSNBC has an interview with Bernie Sanders, and in the interview, Bernie is reported as saying that he calls the actions impeachable and a criminal offense. He says it is unprecedented. It is the most consequential attack on American democracy in the history of our country. I would argue that this is pretty much a non-scandal at this point. From the Hill, Hillary Clinton, what we're seeing right now is a president with nothing left to lose. In her tweets, Georgia voters, along with a clear majority of Americans, chose Joe Biden to be the president. Trump can't change that no matter how many oaths he breaks. GOP legislators who side with him, his attempts to overturn a free and fair election, out themselves as opponents to democracy. What we're seeing right now is a president with nothing left to lose and only one goal: to distract people from the fact that he lost. He doesn't care that the costs are Americans' health, security, and our very democracy. This is very ironic coming from the candidate that told Joe Biden to never concede the election. Finally, USA Today, Congress should impeach Trump and bar him from holding any future public office. Just the same story again. We see calls for the impeachment of Trump, and these just seem completely unfounded. Finally, from Red State, to get a right-wing point of view, the president's call with the Georgia Secretary of State, a case study in the media duplicity that President Trump has battled from day one. And this really just goes into, I had published an article earlier on Sunday calling attention to the fact there remained a legitimate and valid election contest pending in Georgia's state court filed by the Trump campaign, and if the campaign prevailed in the matter, the outcome of the Georgia vote would be invalidated. Under Georgia law, the remedy to the successful plaintiff in that situation is a new election, which is pointless when it comes to a presidential election, since the calendar for the meeting of the Electoral College and the transition under the 20th Amendment makes a do-over election physically impossible to accomplish. The fundamental meaning of that reality is there is no basis under Georgia law by which a presidential candidate can follow Georgia law to contest the outcome of a general election contest. That is a fact that future presidential contestants and parties need to keep in mind, or at least the GOP needs to keep in mind, as the Democrat Party seems to understand it well, i.e. there is no remedy involving the reversing of election outcomes secured by cheating. I think what we're seeing is there needs to be a new standard for how elections are done. Mostly that seems like we would require some type of blockchain technology using hashing algorithms such that you can keep your vote unique, but also have a blockchain that requires some type of signatures going on, so we know every single vote has been signed off by you, the voter, and then any election officials that hold on to the vote. We'll see if anything comes with these impeachment stories. My assumption is nothing will. And this is your January 6th Not So News update. I'll be working on a story later this week to go into why I think there's still hope for the Republican Party in terms of the future of this country, and what changes I think the conservative movement needs to make if they still want to have some type of hold in the American culture. Thank you for joining. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video.